Hi, and thanks for joining me today. Today's presentation is about how to defeat ransomware, and I will give you the cheat codes to winning. And yes, you can win. First, I pulled together some quotes from other technologists in the industry regarding ransomware, and I'd like to read just a couple. James Scott states, ransomware is more about manipulating vulnerabilities in human psychology than the adversary's technological sophistication. Kevin Mitnick writes, companies spend millions of dollars on firewalls, encryption, and secure access devices, and it's money wasted. None of these measures address the weakest link in the security chain. And what he's referring to here is, it's a term that I want you to remember because we're going to talk about it in the presentation, the human firewall. And the last one on the screen, which I find very important, in the very near future, cybersecurity exercises are going to be absolutely expected of all companies by regulators. That's very key. If you're not engaging in some form of cybersecurity exercise, vulnerability assessment, business continuity planning, you would best start now, because in the future, regardless of what demographic you're in, you're probably going to be required to show and prove that you are. Now, before we get in the technical weeds, I want to take a minute to introduce myself. My name is Ryan Carter, and I'm a team member with the Maynard Business and Technology Solutions Group. I'm a senior infrastructure engineer, and I've been with Maynard since 2016. However, I have over 25 years experience in the IT field alone. I started my career roughly in 1990. Like most good IT folks, we have lots of credentials and certificates. I have a few. I'm certified in nonprofit leadership and management through Michigan State University and the Society of Nonprofits. I have an ITIL project management certification. I'm Scrum certified, and for those of you that were around when DIRT was created, I also have a certified Novell administrator certificate. I've held executive director level positions in nonprofit, in manufacturing companies, medical malpractice insurance companies, state government IT, and IT consulting sectors. Prior to joining Maynard, I owned and operated my own IT consulting practice, which I formalized in 1998. Now at Maynard, I have a few focus practice areas with equipment like Cisco, software from VMware, Microsoft, FortiGate products, but the last one is the one of importance, network vulnerability assessments. If you've not had a network vulnerability assessment performed on your infrastructure, it's very important to have done as a baseline, if nothing else, to help you shore up any gaps that you may have within your cybersecurity program, specifically any missing patches, hardware that's out of date, firmware that's out of date, those types of things that can lead to ransomware. It's very important that you have some form of vulnerability assessment completed on a fairly regular basis. On the left-hand side of my screen, you'll see my email address and phone number. Questions are free, so if you have any questions about today's presentation or IT in general, I'm happy to answer any questions you may have. I also have a LinkedIn profile, so if you look me up on LinkedIn, you send me a quick request, I'll add you. We post a great deal of information on a weekly and bi-weekly basis about the things that we see that are popular in the field, issues that our customers are running into, and then helpful tips and ways that you can stay safe to navigate the cybersecurity world. I put together a quick agenda that I'd like to cover. We need to talk about the history of cryptovirology. I know that's a big word, but we're going to flush that out with some definitions. I will actually show you what an outbreak looks like live on the screen. We have to discuss why ransomware is so popular. And last but not least, I will give you the cheat codes to beat ransomware. So first, the definitions. Cryptovirology. It's a field that studies how to use cryptography to design malicious software. Okay, so the next question is, what's cryptography? Okay, it's about constructing protocols that prevent third parties and the public from being able to see our data. Okay, one utility that was used back in the day was a program called PGP. If you look it up, you can find out and read information about what PGP was and what it did. But PGP is a good encryption software, okay, which would be an application. So some other applications of cryptography are something as simple as our computer passwords. They are a form of cryptography. The little chip that's in our payment cards, like our credit cards and debit cards, that is also a form of cryptography. So modern cryptography is really based around mathematical theory and computer science. Basically, algorithms that are designed around computational hardness. basically generating algorithms that are almost impossible to break. Now we need to talk about a couple of forms on the screen specifically. I'm going to start with the simplest, which is called symmetric key algorithms. I want to encrypt my data and send it to someone privately. So I have a file, I generate a private key or an algorithm that then encrypts my data that I can send to a third party. Now that third party also needs a copy of the key that I used to encrypt the data to decrypt the data. So again, I would need to send them the encrypted file as well as the key that I used to encrypt my data to begin with. Asymmetric algorithms, or an example of ransomware, is a key that's generated used to encrypt my data is not the key used to decrypt my data. A secondary, separate key that I don't have access to, that I have to purchase from a cyber criminal to decrypt my data, is what asymmetric algorithms means. One key is used to encrypt the data, a completely separate key is used to decrypt the data. And again, this is ransomware in its purest form. Now I've posted just a quick timeline on the screen, and you'll note it starts at 1996 and it jumps to 2015. And there's a couple of reasons why this timeline is truncated. First, in 1996, and maybe even slightly earlier, we saw some of the first simple asymmetric ransomware types in public. Fast forward 10 years further, and we saw a more sophisticated code hit the public, which was called GP code. Now, shortly thereafter, Bitcoin was invented, and this is key because this is now how ransomware transactions happen. That's how you pay cyber criminals using an untraceable form of payment like Bitcoin. So Bitcoin was created around the 2010, 2011 timeframe. Now, if we bump forward just a few years to 2013, we see some very sophisticated type of ransomware code hit the general public. One of those being CryptoLocker. A year forward, we see CryptoWall, and most of us are have had experience with both CryptoLocker as well as CryptoWall. Jump 1 year further forward, and we see even more sophisticated types of ransomware hit the public, as well as ransomware as a service, which we'll talk about as well. So you can see from the very early days, things took a little bit of time to mature, but once Bitcoin was created and other forms of crypto payment, basically newer forms of ransomware exploded very quickly. 2013, 14, 15, we saw massive amounts of ransomware code generated. Now, I like to term how ransomware outbreaks happen as the ransomware ring of fire. And we're going to talk about how we receive them and what happens. So there's obviously, as part of the very first step, a distribution. You receive in some fashion an infected email or attachment, or you're directed to a compromised website. The infection then starts on your desktop and communicates with encryption key servers out on the dark web. The software then basically scours your computer or your systems looking for data to encrypt, like JPEG, docs, Excel files, PDFs, things that we've created, our data. The encryption process then starts, and it's generally done by renaming your files, encrypting them, and then renaming them again. And then last but not least, you're typically left on your screen with that nifty little red box that says, pay me in Bitcoin at this address in order to get the decryption key back to be able to decrypt your data so that you can get back up and working again. This is an example of the ransomware ring of fire. Now, the area that I want to draw your attention to is step one. This is where we as people come in contact with ransomware. Okay, this is where we need to build the human firewall. We need to strengthen the human firewall, which means we need to understand how ransomware works. We need to make sure that we're following good cyber hygiene and that we're also employing good tools and utilities that we can use in technology to help us stay safe from ransomware. But this is where we build the human firewall, is at step one. Now, I mentioned earlier that I would show you on the screen a ransomware outbreak live. So that's exactly what we're going to do. Okay, so what you see on the screen is a Windows 10 user's desktop. And in the background, you'll notice that I have a folder open which has pictures as well as Word documents. This represents my data that I have created, okay? So those are our files. Now in the middle of the screen, I've received an email message from a person I think I know named Mary. Well, Mary is asking me to verify a FedEx label that she has created. Okay, now we're not even going to talk about the verbiage in the body of the email, which is a red flag. We're just going to focus in on the attachments. Okay, so Mary sent me an attachment that's a DOCM labeled file. It is a doc file with a macro script in it, embedded in it. Okay, that is not a typical doc file in itself, like a document that we should open. Again, it has a program or a script tied in the back of it. Okay, so keep that in mind. So our unsuspecting end user double clicks on the DOCM file to open it, okay? Microsoft Word opens, and at the very top, you'll notice that little yellow bar that says, hey, you're viewing this file in protected view. We've protected you from this file. Do you want to enable editing? Now, the end user who's unsuspecting, because they don't see the shipping label that Mary said she was sending them, is going to click on the Enable Edit button. This is the first problem. So they click the Enable Editing, and Word opens the file fully. Now you'll notice again at the very top, it says security warning, macros have been disabled. Okay, macro being a program or a script has been disabled. Also in the body of the Word document, we're still not seeing the packing list, the shipping label that Mary wanted us to validate. So the end user in this demonstration is about to click the Enable Content button up here at the top. That is going to allow that macro script that was embedded in the Word document to run. This is a mistake. Okay, they click the Enable Content button. And I want you to notice in the background in just a moment what happens to our files. Instantly in the background, our files have been encrypted. That macro script that you just allowed to run, or the user allowed to run, was ransomware, and it literally just encrypted all of our documents. Now remember, those were Word documents and pictures that we had in a directory on our computer. They are now encrypted. We have just allowed ransomware to encrypt our data. And subsequently, what comes after that, after the data has been encrypted, is a ransomware note. Okay, and that note basically tells us exactly what happened, that we've been infected, and that our files are encrypted, and it gives us very important information on how to pay the criminal in Bitcoin or some form of cryptocurrency to get that private key back to decrypt all of our files. Okay, so this is the note that's very typically left behind when we come in contact with ransomware and our files have been encrypted. So that is what the outbreak actually looks like live and what you end up being left with as an infected user. All of our files are completely useless, and when we double click on them, Windows doesn't know how to open them. That was a Word document. Now Windows doesn't know what to do with that Word document. So that is how ransomware spreads and starts. Now I mentioned ransomware as a service. Okay, so this really speaks to the popularity of why people get involved with ransomware. Okay, ransomware as a service is a way for low-level programmers and criminals that really don't understand the full scope of how to deliver ransomware globally to get involved and get paid. Ransomware as a service toolkits were basically allowed to be purchased. They were created, and you can purchase these toolkits to distribute your own form of ransomware. You can literally create code using these little tools very cheaply and start distributing that ransomware and start getting paid in cryptocurrency. And I'm going to show you a couple examples. So on the screen is one that could actually be purchased for $39. You can start creating your own ransomware variants and start sending them out and infecting people. Here's another one on the right-hand side of the screen that's all cloud-based. You don't even have to download any software. You literally fill in the blanks, and it will generate the ransomware code for you that you can start attaching in emails and sending out very simply and start getting paid. Now, interestingly enough, these forms of toolkits came out about the time that cryptocurrency spiked in value. Remember, Bitcoin shot up to over $16,000 per coin. And here is the timeline and graphic on the screen. So in 2018, Bitcoin spiked above $15,000 per coin. And interestingly enough, we saw a huge spike in ransomware about the same time. I think there may be a reason why, because people were getting rich. That's why Bitcoin became more valuable, so they can infect more people and get paid more money and generate more revenue. So again, how does it happen? How do we come in contact with this ransomware? Well, it starts with us. Again, building that human firewall. We are where the rubber meets the road. So what we're seeing is certain businesses and certain demographics are being targeted. 70 to 90% of new malware samples are unique to an organization, meaning that if you're in the banking industry, chances are you're seeing malware after malware after malware that's completely different because someone is taking that code for their own and changing it a little bit and resending it again. So it's passing by your spam filter, it's passing by your filters and not being caught because the code has been changed just enough so that it looks like a brand new sample. We're being fooled as people into opening those messages. We receive phishing attempts, and 11% of our users are still opening those infected attachments. And the reason why is because it happens quickly. We're opening those messages in the first hour of receiving an email messages because we're typically urged to act. The email message is, hey, this is the CEO. I need you to transfer these funds over EFT right away. Please do this now, or please open this attachment, double check my work, look at this PDF file or this shipping label to validate that it's correct. And we're feeling a sense of urgency. So again, it's a breakdown in the human firewall. The first rule is stop, think, then act. If it doesn't seem like it's right, or the verbiage isn't correct, or you shouldn't be being asked to do what this email is asking you to do, chances are you shouldn't. So stop, think about it, then act. I'm going to depict on the screen a few samples of what sample scam phishing emails look like. And one that looks very realistic from Department of Labor, has a Department of Labor seal in it. But the dead giveaway here is that the Department of Labor will never send an email with a link embedded in the body of the message to the Department of Labor. They will ask you to visit the site, the website, dol.gov, by typing it in your browser yourself, logging in and taking action. They will never send you an email with a link in the body, because if you hover over that link, it is not going to take you to dol.gov, it's going to take you to an infected website. We've all received these around Christmas time from UPS, the fake tracking number message. If you look at that tracking number, it's malformed. It is not even a UPS tracking number. And again, they will put the tracking number in text form on the screen and ask you to visit the UPS site and type in the tracking number to track it. They will never send you a link that looks like that. In the past, with Wells Fargo's issues, some of us have received some of these types of emails. Again, they're asking you to act, to go click the login button, which will quote unquote take you to the Wells Fargo site where you can review your account. Again, any reputable company will not send you a link in the body of an email message asking you to click the link to take action. They will tell you to visit their corporate site, log in with your user ID and password, and take action. PayPal, everyone uses PayPal, so it's very prevalent that these types of scam phishing emails are out there. Again, the verbiage of the message is what is suspect right off the get-go. There's no punctuation. There's things that are misspelled, like the word informations instead of the word information. And again, they will never ask you to click a big blue button, which is a link in the body of the message. IRS, these typically come out around tax time. We see them constantly. Click this link to verify your information. Again, the IRS will never, ever send you an email with a link in the body. And last but not least, the great Amazon refund notification. We're refunding you money. Click here to update your address so we can send you a check. Again, Amazon will never, ever send this type of notice with a URL link in the body of the message. They will tell you you're getting a refund and to go to the Amazon site to view the refund you're receiving. They will never ask you to click a link. And for those of you that are Microsoft Office 365 subscribers, which I hope you all are, Microsoft will never ever send you an email like this. They will notify you if there's suspicious activity of your account, but again, they will ask you to browse to office.com, sign in with your 365 credentials and password to validate the type of illicit activity they're seeing on your account. They will never ever send you a link in the body of the message. And again, if you look at this link, it's sending you to secure.login.microsoftonline.com, not Microsoft.com. Microsoft.com and MicrosoftOnline.com are two completely different websites. Okay, so it's important to know the red flags. But these are an example of what phishing emails we come in contact with quite frequently that try and get you to act. A sense of urgency is conveyed within the body of the message, and then they're either asking you to give them credentials that you have or click on a link to take you to a compromised website. Don't fall for these scams. So cheat code number 1, build the human firewall first. Don't just go out and buy the fancy new shiny device, that firewall. Start with your people, train your people. Okay, those are the people who come in contact with ransomware. They are your endpoints. Train them. Make them get involved in some form of cybersecurity training regiment, because we, the people, are the weakest link. Again, I'll be happy to sell you a new firewall, but that is not going to be the be-all, end-all solution. There are a host of solutions. Cybersecurity should be treated with a layered approach. But again, we need to start with the human firewall first. Train your end users on how to spot phishing scams, infected URLs, the red flags within email messages. You also need to subscribe to some form of phishing readiness test company. And there are several out there that will actually allow you to phish test your employees with safe phishing emails to determine who's clicking on things that they shouldn't, so that you can help to train those employees on how to spot those types of scams so that you stay safe. Mandate through a company policy that everyone engage in a cybersecurity training regimen, and not just once in a while. It needs to be done repetitively. Partner with these training companies like a company called KnowBe4, so that your employees know how to spot phishing, ransomware, infected URLs, and other attempts to get them to click on things that they shouldn't. And do it multiple times a year, not just once. And again, demonstrate the red flags within the bodies of email messages like I did on the previous screen. URLs that are going to take them to sites that are not going to do what they advertise, bad grammar, missing punctuation, capitalization in certain spots of the email that doesn't make sense. And again, just things that look off within an email message. Again, I mentioned slowing down. Generally, we receive phishing attempts that try to make us feel like we should act immediately without thinking. But you really need to think about what you're about to do. Scrutinize the verbiage within the email that's used. For instance, if it's an email coming from your quote-unquote CFO, does the body of the message convey a message that your CFO would typically write you or talk to you in? The tone that's used. If not, you probably need to pick the phone up and actually give the sender a call. Don't open email attachments that end in .exe, .scr, .bat, or .com. These are executable files. They will execute something like a program or a script on your computer. Don't respond to spam. I know we all want to send them a little piece of our mind, but that's not a good idea. Just simply delete the message. Don't ever click on embedded links in emails. Reputable companies will never ever send you URLs in the body of messages. If you do receive a URL, here's a tip. Before you click on the URL, hover your mouse over top of the URL link. It will give you a description of the site that it's about to take you to if you were to click on the link. Let's say it came from Microsoft. When you hover your mouse over the URL, it should say Microsoft.com, not some other site in another country. Always check the email from field to validate the sender. The from address could possibly be spoofed. Check for double extended scam attachments. A text file, for instance, named safe.txt is safe, but a file called safe.txt.exe is not. It's an executable. Again, note the difference between websites. For instance, Microsoft.com and a website called support.microsoft.software.com. Those are two different domains, and only one of those is a safe domain, which would be Microsoft.com. Cheat code number 2, you should always protect your data, and everyone knows this. You need to back your data up, but you need to have a sound backup strategy. The only way to protect your organization and data is frequent backups. Okay, and the first step is determining the most critical data systems to back up. Second, you need to secure your backup files in a location that's not directly connected to your production environment, something that's disconnected, like a cloud account that's only active during the backup cycle and then disconnected when the backup is not running. Or in this instance, the laughable joke of using a tape. They may be funny to look at, but they are a disconnected form of backup. For the simplistic backups, if you're a small office or small shop, follow the 3-2-1 rule. Back up your data at least 3 different times, 2 different types of media, one of those offsite or completely disconnected. 3 copies of your data, 2 different types of media, whether cloud, tape, USB, and 1 copy stored offsite. Okay, the cloud can be an inexpensive and easy way to back your data up, but it also needs to be secured. So just because it's in the cloud doesn't mean it's secure. You still need to do your due diligence. If the cloud is not the direction you want to go, there still are ways to use devices like USB drives that you can still use to back up your data safely. But it needs to be disconnected and unprivileged, meaning that the rest of your workforce doesn't have access to it. And the most important step is that you test a restoration of your data on a regular basis. The worst time to find out that you're unable to restore data is when you're knee-deep in a ransomware outbreak and your data is all encrypted. So attempt to restore data on a regular basis, once a quarter, once every 6 months. Go back to that disconnected USB device, find a file, restore it to your desktop, make sure you can open the file to validate that your backup copies are functional, safe, and secure. Cheat code number 3. This is where we use technology to assist us. Implement technology security controls, okay? Automate system security updates and patches. Everybody hates the Windows update screen, the Adobe update screen, the Java update screen, or antivirus update screen. However, that's how ransomware finds its way in. We need to make sure that our systems are up to date at our endpoints, that Windows is up to date, that our operating system has all the necessary patches to keep us safe. So other than the human firewall, this is really the most proactive step you can take to keep your endpoints safe. Above and beyond that, you might consider a web filtering device, which could either be a hardware appliance or software applications to help keep your users safe. Even though they don't know it's running in the background, it's running in an effort to keep them safe. Spam filtering, web gateway filtering, these are other, again, pieces of equipment or software that can be used to stop ransomware. Basically, to keep it from reaching your endpoints, which are desktop laptops and other devices. You can even use an application control application like whitelisting to keep unauthorized executables and programs from running on your endpoints. It doesn't have to be super expensive. There are even free single-use or small home office-based applications for whitelisting. Apply the least access rights approach to data folders and servers, meaning if I'm a typical user not in the accounting department, I probably don't need to access the accounting folder on a file server. I should not have access to that folder, so that when I, as a user, come in contact with ransomware, it can't access those secure folders that I don't have access to. Again, give me the least amount of rights first, and then grant me access where I need it and only where I need it. Implement a next-gen firewall appliance. Again, I told you it isn't the be-all, end-all. However, it will assist, and you should have a next-gen firewall in your infrastructure. It's going to detect certain types of activity coming into your LAN and leaving your LAN as well. Basically, there are rules that you can write, use to block malicious domains, access to domains, specifically like accessing Tor or the dark web. Enable logging so that when alerts happen, you as an administrator or business owner get that alert right away, because it's important to catch the outbreak right away to help mitigate the damage. Monitor the traffic, not only just at your gateway, what's coming in, but also what's going out. Stop outbound malicious traffic from originating from inside your network, such as P2P file sharing. Remember the days of Napster. That is P2P file sharing. You can use third-party utilities like sandboxing. So if you're not sure a file you're about to open is safe, you can spin up a virtual environment or a sandbox environment on your desktop, open the file in that sandbox environment to find out what it's going to do. The damage only happens in that virtual environment, which you can then shut down and delete. And again, last but not least, block access to Tor. Tor is used by ransomware quite frequently to connect to and communicate with the servers out on the dark web. If ransomware can't establish a communication to that command and control server on the dark web, basically ransomware is dead. So block Tor as well. Cheat code number 4, close up pinholes in your environment. I can't tell you how many times I have gone on site to customers who say, but my admin likes to work from home, so we've opened up RDP through our firewall. Okay, that is a pinhole into your network. So rather than to open those pinholes, use a VPN solution. A VPN solution encrypts that connection from outside in to your network. It can be hardware or software based. Again, close up RDP port 3389. RDP, or Remote Desktop Protocol, allows inbound access directly to a server or computer on your LAN. However, everything that you type, like an admin password, is typed in clear text, which means if there are any sniffing utilities being run on your LAN, someone is going to catch that admin password being typed in and then use it against you to infect your network. Restrict other open source remote desktop productivity tools like VNC, Real VNC, Tight VNC, any of these other third-party open source products. Use a VPN solution. Then you don't have to use those types of products. Perform regular external public IP scans on your network, because I can tell you cyber criminals are doing it all the time. And there are a couple of free application online port scanning utilities that you can use on a regular basis that are free to scan your public IP address to see what ports are open that you may not even know are open on your border edge router that you need to close up, like RDP. Cheat code number 5. What do you do if ransomware hits? Well, the first thing is, don't panic. You need to stay calm, because decisions you're about to make in a panic state are not going to be your best. Stay calm and focused. If you think your computer is being hit with ransomware, Like in the live example that I showed you a few screens back, where your files are becoming encrypted right in front of you, unplug the Ethernet cable from the back of your computer if you're on a physical LAN, or disconnect your computer from Wi-Fi. This will isolate the outbreak to just your workstation and not jump to other servers that you have access to on your LAN. Disconnect the power from your computer. I mean, literally physically unplug the power cable from the back. That will stop your computer and the script that's running on it, which is the infection. Then contact your IT professional. Don't plug the computer back in and turn it back on until a set of eyes who knows what to look for can take a look at your computer. As soon as you notice your files becoming inaccessible, like I showed you in the live ransomware outbreak, follow the steps above immediately. Disconnect it from the network, disconnect it from Wi-Fi, and unplug power from it if you have to. Limiting that spread will reduce the overall number of files that get damaged and encrypted, which also limits the amount of restoration time to get you back up and running, potentially an embarrassing reputation, brand damage if the breach were to be publicized. So the quicker that you can act with a calm head is what's going to help you get back up and running with the least amount of disruption and cost to your business. And you should be talking with IT professionals about creating a recovery plan, specifically a disaster recovery plan or a business continuity plan. These should include real-life scenarios and should not be just kept to ransomware outbreak scenarios, but also other scenarios like weather-related. What happens if a tornado destroys my building? How do we get back up and running? What systems are most impacted and key and should be brought back up online or recreated first? What happens if a sprinkler head ruptures in my server room and all of my equipment gets damaged? What happens if a person acting as an employee walks into my building, accesses my server room, and steals hard drives from my server? Things like that are real life scenarios that need to be scripted out in a business continuity plan or a disaster recovery plan. And you should be updating that document on a regular basis. It should be a living, breathing document that you spend time assessing on a very regular basis. These are the steps and cheat codes you need in order to stay ransomware safe. And if you follow them, you will stay ransomware safe. Now, every one of my presentation, I like to end with some helpful links and resources that you can take away to help you stay safe. Berkeley has 10 secure computing tips that I recommend you read. For password best practices, Krebs on security is probably the best. Brian Krebs has been in the IT security world for as long as I can remember, and he has some do's and don'ts on the best way to secure your passwords. If you want to test the strength of a password, you can visit a site called passwordmeter.com and start typing your password in the box. It will not ask to save or submit your password, but it will show you just below your password that you're typing in algorithms to show just how hardened your password is. I mentioned vulnerability assessments, and this is a shameless plug for the one that I offer at Mainer. Also, the company that we use, that I recommend, that we do not have an affiliation with, but that we use on a daily basis to test our own employees, is a company called KnowBe4. You can actually pay for and subscribe to a cybersecurity program like we do, or they do have some great free security tools out there that are very helpful that you can take away and use in your practical daily lives to stay safe. Every security announcement or vulnerability announcement is published to a website run by the government called us-cert.gov. If ever you can't fall asleep at night and you need some good bedtime reading to put you to sleep, there is an exhaustive site on all of the vulnerabilities that are published on a daily basis. The DOJ has a good PDF on how to stay ransomware safe. It is somewhat of a checklist that allows you to take action and follow through whether or not you've created a disaster recovery plan, whether you have assets in place to get back up quickly, and again, other checklists to stay safe. And last but not least, InfoSec Institute has creating the human firewall, basically 7 steps to stay successful by creating a solid human firewall. All of these links are here on the screen for your benefit. Use them at your will. Share them with friends and coworkers and colleagues. Hopefully they can stay safe as well by using these tips. And as always, questions are always free. Please feel free to submit questions either directly to me over email, look me up on LinkedIn. I'll be happy to respond, as well as you can call me at that direct line. That is my direct line. My phone will ring and I'm happy to speak with you about your questions regarding IT scenarios, cybersecurity issues, vulnerability assessments, and even assisting you in creating a recovery plan if you haven't done so with any IT professionals. Again, thank you for viewing my presentation today. Hopefully these tips and tricks keep you safe from ransomware. And again, if you have any questions, please feel free to contact me.